Good morning. My name is Joe Richardson. I'm a partner at McCune Wright Arevalo, for spelling J-O-E, Richardson, R-I-C-H-A-R-D-S-O-N. With me, we have MWA, McCune Wright Arevalo, senior partner, Richard McCune. We have MWA Partner Cory Weck, who's a retired Marine major. And we also have the client, James Ingalls. Now, why the press conference? We're here because of the bankruptcy filing by Aearo Technologies, which is the company owned by 3M. This is the company that originally sold the Combat Arms Earplug version 2 earplug to the military. Once 3M acquired the company for the promise to be responsible for the earplugs, then 3M continued to sell the earplugs. We have a lawsuit that alleges damages on behalf of military members damaged by the use of the earplugs, as do other firms representing the over 200,000 plus injured service members. To date, there have been 16 trials involving 19 service members, and plaintiffs have won 10 of them with some $265 million in combined awards to 13 plaintiffs. Maybe more, but it's at least that amount. So here we are, and conveniently and pragmatically, there is a bankruptcy filing that would keep Aearo and thereby 3M from providing service members reasonable compensation. This is unacceptable. So in this press conference, we'll be doing the following. We'll introduce senior partner Rich McCune to discuss the appropriateness or lack of it of the bankruptcy in light of 3M's healthy financial condition. We'll be introducing our client, Mr. Ingalls, who will talk about how these earplugs have affected his life and how he feels about this action by 3M. And then we'll also hear from retired Marine Corps Major Cory Weck, again an MWA partner, to discuss the obligations that 3M has to service members who were supplied these earplugs and how the bankruptcy affects that litigation. So with that, I'll go to Rich McCune.
All right, thank you. I'm Richard McCune. I'm the managing partner of McCune Wright Arevalo, and we're one of the many firms that are proud to represent service members in this matter. The reason I wanted to have a press conference and talk is late last week when 3M announced they were putting $1 billion into a fund and that there was bankruptcy involving the case involving the defective earplugs. It was met with a bit of a sigh, and this is legal stuff. And it's a lot more than legal stuff. And wanted to talk about that. We wanted to make sure people understood the implications of this. The Aearo company, which was purchased by 3M in 2008, from 2003 to 2015, provided the earplugs for military members, different branches, including certainly in the early parts of this, a lot of active wartime duty service for members. And they were the provider. The military arranged it. The service members didn't have a choice, and they were provided these earplugs that were absolutely vital for the future hearing health of these service members, who are often quite young. And so they were provided. In 2018, the Department of Justice announced that after conducting a thorough investigation, that 3M had agreed to pay over $9 million to the Department of Justice as a result of knowingly selling the dual-ended compact arms, earplugs. That's not plaintiff lawyers, that's not service members, that's the Department of Justice. Since then, thousands upon thousands of service members have come forward and have told their stories in litigation and outside of litigation, how they have permanent hearing loss or they have permanent ringing in the ears, which is called tinnitus, as a result of their service in the military. In response to the thousands of lawsuits that were filed, all those lawsuits were consolidated down in a Florida court with one judge responsible to oversee those cases. And there's something in the order of 230,000 cases in the Florida court. And so you can't try 230,000 cases all at once, of course. So what the court has done, it has selected what's called bellwether cases, which are sample cases that are chosen by both sides, and those cases have gone to trial. And what we've learned and what we already knew, and it's what the Department of Justice knew, is most of these juries found that there was defective earplugs sold to service members. And this is what is the latest verdict. This is not our case. This is a law firm with one of the service members in there. And this happened this jury verdict came back in 2022, just May of 2022, just a couple months ago. And this is the latest one. And in this verdict, the jury found that it was defective. But what they also found, which is consistent with the Department of Justice, that there was fraud in the concealment and fraud in the misrepresentation. They awarded the service member $5 million for the pronounced hearing loss, and they determined that this was that there was punitive damages that were appropriate and awarded $72.5 million as punishment for the selling of the defective products. This is not a minor issue. This is something very important that affects hundreds of thousands of our service members. So in light of all that, late last week, 3M announced that it was putting Aearo into bankruptcy and therefore would cap its liability at $1 billion. Excuse me. This was a bit shocking to most of us and our clients, and in our view is grossly unfair and is not warranted. So why is that? $1 billion sounds like a lot of money. $1 billion comes out to a little over $4,000 per service member for lifelong hearing loss and tinnitus. $4,000 for the service members who have had the rest of their life affected by this. Well, okay. So if you have a company that doesn't have the money to provide them the actual compensation they're due, that's what bankruptcy is for. But here's the situation with 3M. While they're declaring bankruptcy, I'd like to show you a couple of slides from the annual report, which was the end of last year, 2021, on the health condition of 3M that says we've got to put Aearo into bankruptcy and can only pay $1 billion. First of all, what is their assets? This is from the annual report, and what this shows is over that as of December 31, 2021, that 3M had over $47 billion in assets. Then I'd like to show you the next, which is the net income. Over the last 3 years, the net income for 3M is $15 billion. Then I'd like to show you the message that the CEO, Mr. Roman, sent to its shareholders. And in that highlighted section below, Mr. Roman brags about the financial health of the company. And in the last 3 years alone,
they sent back to the shareholders $14 billion. And then finally, I'd like to show Mr. Roman's paid compensation while he apparently feels it's appropriate to put this company into bankruptcy. And what that shows is Mr. Roman, the CEO of this company that has now put Aeron into bankruptcy, was paid over $56 million in the last 3 years. So that's the background. That's the use of bankruptcy on this company. So a company that has $47 billion in assets, that has net income of over $15 billion in the last 3 years, that has sent $14 billion back to shareholders and can pay its CEO $56 million over the last 3 years, is not a bankrupt company. And what that shows is 3M's use of the bankruptcy system in order to avoid its responsibility to service members. We think that's outrageous. It's harmful to the service members. It's a lot more than just a blip and a legal maneuvering. It's a moral failure of 3M's responsibility to the service members. And that's why we're having the press conference. That's why we'll be fighting this in court along with the other firms that have done this. And I think it's really important that that people understand the effect to their family and friends and their loved ones that are service members. So with that, I would like to pass it on to our client, Mr. Ingalls, who is appearing remotely. And he is one of the service members affected. He's one of the 230,000 people that have filed a lawsuit. And he's in a lot better position to talk about the effect of this unfair legal maneuvering. So with that, Mr. Ingalls, if you would kindly talk about briefly your service and the injuries that have flown from that and how that's affected you, I would appreciate it.
First of all, thank you for having me. My name is James Ingalls. I reside in Columbus, Ohio, or just outside of it. I retired as a sergeant major in 2015. I joined the military in 1996. Had no issues with hearing prior to joining the service. Started deploying overseas to Kosovo in 2004, 2005, Iraq in 2009 to 2010, Afghanistan 2011, 2012. Leading up to our deployment to Iraq, we started, the military is on something called an ARFGEN model. It's a 5-year cycle. The first year is always your refit year, or basically resetting your unit. And then the next few years you're leading up into preparing your units to prepare for deployment. Throughout those years, you start slowly getting in equipment from different locations, to include the 3M earplugs that are being discussed. During this time, you start doing weapons qualifications and all this different live fire training exercises. You're doing, rifles, handguns, depending on what your MOS is. I was an infantryman, so obviously we dealt with larger ordnance. Leading up to the deployment out on ranges, I would consistently get ringing in my ears after firing on the range, specifically my left ear. I am a left shoulder fired. I'm left-handed, so I fire my rifle on the left ear. That is where I have my hearing loss from. I did not think a whole lot about it. Just kind of you do your military service and you say these earplugs suck and you keep moving on. Coming back after Iraq, starting to prepare for my deployment to Afghanistan, we have to go through a medical assessment, which I was confirmed to have hearing loss in my left ear. I was sent to hearing specialists. I was sent to the VA. I've been issued a hearing aid. And throughout this time, I kind of realized that I had a little bit of hearing loss, but I did not know the significance of it. Consistent people repeating themselves, or me saying the huhs or the whats. I got to a point to where it significantly impacted my familial life and my work life, because I got to a point to where when I wouldn't hear things, I would have to either read lips, put together and piecemeal what people were saying and what I could hear and understand, and kind of piecemeal it. And sometimes that always didn't work out. My wife became increasingly frustrated with me. As a law enforcement officer, it was in an officer safety issue. I managed to work through those. Thankfully, the VA here in Columbus, Ohio, has been absolutely wonderful to me. Initially, I had a hearing aid that was not real good, so I kind of suffered for several years. But actually, in the past few months, I've got the latest and greatest earplug or hearing aid that they have to offer, and it has done a tremendous job of improving my quality of life. My thoughts on this whole ordeal, when I first found out that they knew that 3M knew about these earplugs being ineffective, it kind of made sense to me after the fact, as to why I couldn't hear stuff. I could directly attribute it to the 3M earplug. As soon as I saw them, I'm like, I definitely had those, and I knew when I had them, so it kind of made sense. And that's when I reached out to this office here to assist me with this lawsuit, because I knew nothing about it. This has been a rigorous 3 years, almost 3 years, I think it's coming up on, is when I actually filed this. I could be wrong, but I know it's well over 2. A lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of time spent trying to track down medical records and anything else I could to support my cause. I'll be fair to say that I had zero expectations out of this. This is a multi-billion-dollar organization, and I am not surprised one bit that a large organization like this would find a way to use the law to bankruptcy laws to weasel their way out of this. In my personal opinion, being a veteran, even if I walked away from this for nothing, but if I saw other veterans that benefited from this, would be very rewarding. But the fact that 3M is doing this is not only appalling, disgusting, any other negative connotation you could associate with it, it is it. This is true malice at its finest, and this is big business trying to find the easiest way out, instead of holding themselves accountable and taking care of the responsibility that they have when their motto for these earplugs are "You protect us, we'll protect you." That's an absolute slap in the face. I hope that any person that is willing to listen to this understands that there are over 200-some thousand veterans that are walking around here that are having a hard time hearing you because of an organization that was all about profit and not really worried about the welfare of our servicemen and women. Some servicemen and women have deployed multiple times, like myself, many, several more than I have. I think that 3M needs to step up and be adults about this and take care of their responsibility, since they made a profit off of this, and they knew about it, and they continue to go on with malice out of this whole ordeal. It's absolutely disgusting.
Thank you, Mr. Ingalls.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Cory Weck. I'm a retired Marine Corps Major. You know, nearly 30 years ago, I earned the title of United States Marine. And with that oath that I took, not only to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, I took a more solemn oath, and that was to protect my junior Marines. And how do we go about doing that within the Marine Corps and the other services of any rank? We look out for our junior Marines, sailors, soldiers, and airmen by getting them the best training and the best equipment to accomplish the mission. We failed these service members, ladies and gentlemen. 3M failed these service members by giving a knowingly defective product to Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen to go in harm's way and have now suffered permanent loss in either one or both ears as a result of that defective product. We need to hold these companies accountable day in and day out in doing what I do for a living. I see corporations that run roughshod over those who cannot stand up and fight for themselves. That's why my firm, those firms around the country that are fighting for the American service members, are doing what they can to bring justice to these service members who've given up so much for their country. My own son currently serves on active Navy, stationed overseas as a military police officer. I believe strongly in service to our country, and I believe that you believe in supporting our troops that put themselves in harm's way every single day, whether it's in a combat zone or in a training exercise. We owe it to them to provide the best equipment possible for them to accomplish their mission and come home safely, and to continue on with their lives and their families without fear of permanent injuries, such as we see as a result of this knowingly defective hearing aid product. So my ask, ladies and gentlemen, is that you reach out to, whether it's your local politicians, whoever you believe has some position of authority, to help support our fight against this multi-billion-dollar company that has no qualms to crush the American service members who've done so much for their country. It's time to hold them accountable, and that's unfortunately the only way we can do that is to hold them financially responsible for the harm they've caused. One of the basic leadership traits all Marines are taught is about accountability and responsibility. It's one thing to feel that you're accountable. Now it's time to be responsible and make up for the harm that you caused. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to Sergeant Major, who so eloquently spoke what so many of our Marines, sailors, soldiers, and airmen have gone through. Those are the true victims. They're the true warriors for our country. Let's support them in this fight against 3M.
With that, we take any questions if there were any. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone.